And
do our.
do you want to clap sync as well?
Yeah.
Alright, we'll do clap sync. We'll clap on one.
Okay. You can count us
Okay.
down for this.
All right. Cool. 3, 2, 1. All right.
Oh, you know what? I think I went a little late. Okay. I did it right after
so
one.
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, as I say one, we'll
Okay.
do it. Okay. 3, 2, 1.
There we go. I think that was it. I actually heard you clap this time.
Okay. I clapped way closer to the mic, hoping that it would like be a little bit more noticeable, because I would think that you'd be able to hear a clap.
Yeah.
Like if you can hear me talking, I would think you could hear a clap. But I mean, maybe it's because it's too like sharp of a noise
To pick
and,
up.
a
Yeah.
lot of times, microphones do that thing, where it's like if it's too sharp, it'll just cut itself off.
Yeah. I think
So
that's
maybe that's why.
probably what it is.
What a weird way to start our podcast, talking about the science behind microphones.
But we're back. We're back.
Yeah.
And we have a interesting
Episode 3.
idea for this one. Actually, Billy. It's Billy's idea.
We'll both take credit for it.
Yeah, I'll take a little
because
bit. I'm just kidding. No, this is your
our
idea, so
podcast. Yeah.
you go ahead and fill in what this idea is of yours.
Okay, so the idea is that both of us will come up with some unfleshed out story ideas, and then we'll help each other flesh out the story ideas. And we figured we'd split this into 2 parts. We'd do an episode with me, and then one with Aiden. We would split them and do, I come up with, some really unfleshed out story ideas, and then he helps me flesh them out, and then vice versa next episode.
Yeah, and the reason we actually have to split it up is because I don't really have anything right now.
To be honest, these story ideas are probably very bad, and at most I could probably write a short story out of them. And most of them aren't even story ideas. It's more like magic system ideas.
I mean, hey, that still works. I think I come up with things sometimes, and then I don't ever write them down. And then I just, like, you forget, and that's it. But I get frustrated because I'm like, I know at some point I've had a bunch of ideas, but I don't put them anywhere. So I guess that's a tip. If you ever have an idea, just write it down. It's a good idea.
Yeah,
just put it somewhere.
Yeah, I had the same problem where I had all these ideas, and, there's too many to keep track of. And so I actually started a Google Doc of, like, ideas, like, serious ideas that I was going to, like, someday write books about. Mm-hmm. I'm not tapping into that Google Doc, though, just because I still want to write those stories, and I don't want anybody to steal my ideas.
To put them out there yet? Yeah. So these ones are all you've stored these in your head?
Yeah, these are fresh stories, yeah.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I haven't heard any of them yet, by the way. This is my first time hearing about them.
Yes, this is completely raw. This is, I don't know if I've told anybody. There's one of these on here that I've spoken to another friend about.
Oh, man.
Wanting to write something on. So that one's a little bit more...
So I'm the second person to hear about this?
Oh, a little bit.
I kind of feel left out, I'm not going to lie. Billy.
I'm sorry.
Like, that kind of hurts.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. At least there's 4 others that'll be the first person to hear.
Yeah. Well, and maybe as this goes on, maybe we think of more to add to it.
That's true. I might get my idea just from this.
There you go.
But anyway, go ahead. Shoot us with your first
I would recommend you write your idea. I would recommend you write your ideas down if you have them.
That's a good idea. I'll do it. Maybe.
Is there a way you want to? Because I have a couple here. Did you want me just to list out all that I had, or did you want me to say one of them? We'll flesh it out a little bit, move on to the next. Was there a system you wanted us to have?
Look, that's up to you. I mean, if there's one that you don't have to read them in order, just you can pick your favorite one. We can talk about that first.
Right. That's kind of what I was figuring, that we would pick a favorite one, because I feel like it would take way too long to try to flesh out 5 different stories.
Yeah.
Even if a couple of these end up just being little short story things.
Yeah.
All right, so do you want me to go ahead and just pick out... I'll go ahead and pick out the, most fleshed out one I think I have here.
Okay.
And that is... I don't know how to explain it super well. The concept is that you have a cat, okay?
Okay.
And it's this young girl, she's 8 years old or something like that, right? It's this young girl's little cat, right?
Yeah.
And the concept is that the cat is this eldritch god, this crazy powerful being, and it's just taken the form of a cat, and because it's this god, there's all these paranormal like, ghosts, like apparitions and stuff like that kind of like try to terrorize the house, but because the cat is a god, it like takes care of the apparitions, so the family has like no idea.
Okay. Okay.
And this one was more of a short story idea, but essentially that is the story idea I had here.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that as a short story. Yeah, because that's you can go a few different directions with that. I think like the main question I guess I would have is why is a god disguising themselves as a cat
As
and
a
living with the
cat,
family?
which is something I hadn't figured that part out yet. I didn't know if maybe the god lost its memory and doesn't know that it's a god. It thinks it's just a cat that has to like get rid of these ghosts or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's decided that it's like running from something, and the
Yeah.
best way to stay out of trouble is to take the form of a household animal.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the part of the story I haven't fleshed out yet.
Yeah, I think when I think of that, well, one idea that comes to mind is like if it's just a god that's on vacation, so they're like, I'm gonna go live as a cat for 9 years, or I know cats live much longer than that.
Yeah, I think the average cat lifespan is probably in the teens. Like, I would say
Yeah.
13 to 16 years,
Yeah.
within that range.
I would say like a god is like I'm tired of doing things. I just want to go chill for like 20 years, be a cat with a family, and then at the end, when the cat's like about to die or whatever, he like turns into their ghost form, or not their ghost, god form. And they're like, hey, thanks for having me, family, deuces, and then just dips out.
Just like, hey, that wasn't a cat, and then just leaves. That's funny. I actually like the idea, though, that God is, like, tired of doing God things and having God responsibilities, so it's like, you know what? I'm gonna go take, like, a, 2-decade-long vacation and just,
Yeah.
like, experience the world as a mortal.
Yeah.
But it, like, doesn't know, or maybe it makes a mistake and accidentally turns itself into a cat.
That's a
Maybe
possibility.
it's
Yeah,
one
I
of
guess
those
it depends,
situations,
because that would be the more comedic twist on it, having them just go on
Right.
vacation. But
The only issue I have with the whole, like, the god accidentally turned itself into a cat was that, the obvious dynamic that you'd have here is that it's a god, it's this, like, higher being that is a 8-year-old's pet, and I feel like that is a little bit overdone. You have this, like, super powerful being that kind of just, like, has to deal with, like, a child's whims or whatever. I feel like that's a little bit overdone.
almost like a genie.
Yeah, it's like, it's a very similar situation to that,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, no.
So, like, I think we've all seen that story, where, it's this, powerful being, and, oh, sorry, it's a cat. It has to just kind of, like, hang out with this 8-year-old or child or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. What you could let's see. Yeah, because that's where my mind first goes. It's just like it's a guy that
Right.
wants to take a vacation, just gonna go chill and be a cat for a while. Because I'd probably do
I
that.
like that.
If I'm being honest.
I like that idea. I like the idea that it was intentional and that the god just, like, because you ever heard, like, for people who don't have, like, celebrity jobs or whatever like that, like, going to work at McDonald's is a job, but then you have somebody, like, I heard that, like, is it Gaga or Gaga? I think it's Gaga.
Yeah, wait,
Lady-
Gaga. It's Gaga. So I guess you can say it however you want.
I don't know why I'm messing up Lady Gaga's
It's
name
Lady-
pronunciation.
like
This
Gaga,
seems like such
Lady
an
Gaga.
obvious...
I don't know. I've never
Yeah,
thought about
anyways.
it.
Apparently, she will go and, like, work at Starbucks for a day.
Are you
just to,
serious?
like, feel what it's like. Like
Oh,
her
wow.
vacation is being a normal person,
I've,
basically.
I've never heard of that. I've heard of
That's
like
what
it's
I've
like
heard. I don't
sports
know if it's
stars doing
true. Yeah, I don't know if it's, like, true. Like, this is something that actually happens, but this is something that I've heard that, like, celebrities will go do this. They'll go live life as a normie,
it. I've heard of people
so maybe
going to
it's
like the
that
grocery
kinda-
store.
Yeah, I've done that. I've heard of that where they didn't Michael Jackson
Yeah.
I
was about to say, dude, I got some news for you.
He, like, rented out, like, a whole grocery store just so he could, like, go to the grocery store and not have people, like, stopping him and, like, Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
Like, he could just, like, go to the grocery store, pretend like he was a normal person.
Yeah.
And so I would assume that, this would be a very similar situation, like, for us, the idea of being a cat would be like, oh, why would you want to do that? But for a god, maybe being a cat is, exciting.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's a good point to make with the celebrities because I did
Yeah, I
not
don't. That was a
think about
kind of a
that.
weird parallel to draw, but I mean, you get the picture.
Well, it's like when you have everything, then what do you do?
Yeah,
So
right. You go pretend like you have nothing, right?
yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think yeah, that's hmm.
I can move on to the next one if we're ready for it.
It's up to you if you think we're ready for it.
I think I'm ready for it.
Okay.
I think that the Eldritch God Kitty Cat story there's not a whole lot to be fleshed out there because
Yeah.
the story is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, and if it's a
The
short
rest of
story,
the
then you fill in the blanks as a
Exactly.
writer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The rest of these that I have here are more magic systems. Like so that one was more of a fleshed out story. The rest of the stuff I have here is mainly just like magic systems that I think would be fun to incorporate into a story.
Okay.
So this next one I actually got the inspiration for this because I wanted to get into Magic the Gathering, and so I like bought a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards, was looking through them, and was like, what would be a really cool story if people could cast magic spells and like summon creatures, like if that was like an actual magic system, like having cards,
Mm-hmm.
like very similar to like Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yeah.
but like it would be more of like a magic system rather than like a gaming system.
Okay.
And so you'd have these people, who have the like, and I don't know if they like maybe, acquire the decks through like buying them, or maybe it's like at some point in your life you're able to just like, what's it called when you like just create something? It's called, starts with an F.
Forging?
Like, forging, close. Why can't I think of this word?
Oh, man.
I hate when this
I thought
happens
that
to
was
me,
it.
when I'm like, it's a very obvious word that I can't think of. It's,
Somebody is screaming that word right now at us.
yeah.
Um,
We'll come back to it, anyways. But they like can create the cards, these like magic cards that do like spells, summon creatures, create items.
yeah.
I don't know. I always thought that'd be a really fun story to write, even though card games are nothing new. But I've never read a card game novel before.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So when you say these story ideas, you're thinking of them in terms of a novel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think. I mean, I think some of them might work well. Like the Eldritch God Cat story. I think that could work really well as like a short animation or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
But for me personally, my expertise is writing books.
Yeah.
Not expertise. I haven't been published or anything like that. But that's where my
eventually.
hobby, I guess. Yeah. Eventually. But as of right now, my hobby is writing books, and so that's where I immediately go to with these ideas is writing a novel with them or some kind of story with these.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I've never seen anything like that in a book before, like a card system.
Fabricate. That was the word I was looking
Fabricate?
for. Fabricate.
Oh,
Yeah, fabricate.
I would not have. It would have taken me a while. To get
Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt
No,
you. I
you're
just
good.
immediately thought of the word. I was like, there it is.
Fabricate. Yeah, that works. So in this story, the characters would use cards or magic cards to have duels.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so like let's say you're fighting another like card user and they, pull out this card that has a fireball on it. The card will like shatter, let's say, and then it creates a fireball spell.
Yeah.
And so then as, getting targeted by this fireball, maybe you pull out a card that's got a stone golem on it. And so then you cast that one and then boom, your stone golem is right there, gets hit by the fireball, tanks it because, it's a stone golem. And now you've got yourself a minion that you can command.
Yeah, that's interesting because I guess it would be a difficult one to do as well because most of the time when you have cards like say in Yu-Gi-Oh or a card game, I mean it's you can see them and the visual part of them is usually like front and center. So having to describe them in a book is something that sticks out to me because you'd probably want to give them like pretty like not only like describe the cards well, but also give them pretty cool
Right.
names. That way, like
Right.
when people read what's played or what's used, they're like, oh shoot, like yeah,
Well, because then you got to think a lot of the time you're pretty much going to be describing artwork. Like
right,
when you look at like Magic the Gathering cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, it's artwork, and then it's got like a description of what this artwork does. And so now like every time you go to cast a spell, you've got to describe the artwork.
yeah, yeah.
So I think it would be difficult, but I think it would be a very interesting write.
It would be a very different take, and I think it'd be cool because you could also talk about the origin of said cards. I don't know if they talk about that in like Yu-Gi-Oh. I've not really
Yeah,
seen
I think
Yu-Gi-Oh.
it's always like yeah, in Yu-Gi-Oh they just say like, oh, Yu-Gi-Oh's just been a thing.
Yeah,
Like I don't know if there's like I mean I don't know. I haven't watched Yu-Gi-Oh since I was like 8 years old, so maybe at some point they're like, oh, there's this ancient thing that goes on with Yu-Gi-Oh. I wouldn't be surprised.
yeah. I have no
Actually,
idea.
I don't even think it's called Yu-Gi-Oh in the show because isn't the main character's name Yugi? So it'd be kind of weird if the card game was called Yu-Gi-Oh in the show.
I don't. Yeah, dude. I have no idea. I should look that up. Card game.
Yeah. Because I mean, I know the like physical card game, the not in the show one. The physical card game is called Yu-Gi-Oh, but would they call it Yu-Gi-Oh in the show?
Yeah, I don't think so. I honestly, if I search up Yu-Gi-Oh or card game Yu-Gi-Oh, it's not. It's obviously not going to show up.
Let me
on
look
film
up.
for
Let
that.
me see. What if I look up? What do they call the card game in Yu? This is totally just gonna be like they call it Yu-Gi-Oh. Oh, they call it Duel Monsters.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. That's a very
they call it Duel Monsters.
it's a basic name, but it works. It gets the point across.
Yeah, I mean it's like Pokemon. It's the one of the most iconic names in the world, but it literally just means pocket monster.
Can I go off on a side tangent here? You said
Oh, yeah,
Pokemon.
absolutely.
You know the streamer Pokimane, right?
Yes.
Do you know the story behind her name?
I have definitely heard it before. I don't vividly remember it though.
So her name is Iman, like Imane. So
Like that's her like real name?
yeah, that's her name, Iman. So
Okay.
her name is supposed to be Poke and then Iman. So Pokemon, that's her name.
Oh,
But everyone reads it
okay.
as Pokimane, and it just kind of stuck.
I got it. So then she like okay.
She was like, okay.
That's interesting actually.
Yeah, I
That's
didn't know
actually
that
pretty
either.
interesting.
But anyway, yeah, side tangent. But yeah, with the cards, I think a cool thing that you could do in a book is describe the actual origins of said cards. Like maybe
Right.
they were forged or fabricated by some ancient magical being, and there's only a set amount of them, and maybe they can't be destroyed or recreated, and they summon beings from another realm, or maybe there's a big
Right.
mystery behind it, and people want to figure out what that is.
Right. I almost think it would be very fun to leave it like make the book or novel or what short story, whatever you want this to be. Make the premise behind it being we want to find out what's behind these cards, and then never give a clear answer as to what it is because
Yeah.
it leaves people theorizing. You don't want to like have this book where I'm trying to find the cards and maybe they find something very close but they don't exactly find what they're looking for. Because then it's a bit more exciting. It leaves you wondering, leaves
Yeah.
you thinking about it.
Yeah,
I think that would be a very interesting take.
it would be. Yeah, because I guess you'd put the focus more on why, because Yu-Gi-Oh, it's like, okay, here's these cards, they do these things, accept it, right? But in a book, you could be like, wait, hold up, like, what is this? Where does it come
Right.
from? And you can actually like figure out how exactly it works.
Right. And so would you have a villain or something in this, or would the antagonist just be people they encounter along the way who just, I don't know what the
yeah.
antagonist would be.
I don't know. Okay, I think one way you could do it is I think, if you put it in like a real life scenario, if there were all these like cards all of a sudden, they would be looked at as like power. And
Right.
obviously there's going to be groups of people out there who are going to gather up every single ounce of power or card that they can. And so maybe having these cards is illegal, or maybe you have to be very careful that one of these figures, whoever they are, maybe it's an entire company, doesn't come in and take what's yours, or hurt you
Okay.
for it. I don't know. That's one
Maybe
idea.
it's like a government mandated thing. Like maybe the government has an idea of where these cards come from, and it's like a secret for them. Or maybe it's not even a government thing. Maybe it's a company thing. This company has discovered the secret to forging more of these cards, or the whatever behind the cards,
Yeah.
and they want to keep it under locks. And so the main character is trying to unlock this secret, and so this company is their antagonist.
And I think another cool thing you could do is, because it's like technically illegal, what happens is there's these like underground duels that happen. Similar things like yeah, have you seen Big Hero 6?
Yes.
You know how they have this
they
like
do the like little monster, the rope, like the RC monster, or not monster, robot
yeah.
battles.
So you would have like your main
Yeah,
character
ooh.
participating in these underground magic duels.
Okay.
And
I actually like
yeah.
that idea a lot.
yeah, I think that'd be fun.
That's actually a really now I really want to write this novel. This is like
Now you have to
this
do
is
it,
like-
dude.
This is like one of the like systems that I had like come up with in my head that I was like, yeah, it's kind of cool. I don't know if I'd ever do it though, because I don't know if it would like work out as well as I hope. But no, I'm liking this a lot. Actually.
Yeah, because I think you could more so almost fit it into like a real life scenario. So I think there's a lot you could do with that, and I think that's a cool aspect, is like having these underground magic battles, and they have to like keep it a secret.
I like that concept a lot. Actually,
Yeah.
I think that's super neat.
Yeah, I don't know where, like, I guess another thing to figure out would be like what's the story with the main character,
Right, like why are they the one who's trying to unlock the secret?
Yeah.
Because you can't have I guess you could have the main character be an important figure, but like typically your main character is just this nobody that all of a sudden is called upon for this great thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I guess maybe you could do like the main character's father works for a rival company, and his father's getting close to discovering the secret to creating more cards or something like that, and so then the company kills his father to try to keep their secret or something like that. I don't know. I feel like that's a little on the nose, but
Yeah.
maybe you could do something along that lines.
Or maybe the main character is really good and is very well known underground for these battles, and
Okay.
eventually, word gets around, and he ends up being like taken in by a government or company, and they're like, look, we won't, basically penalize you for what you've done if you help us figure this out. Because maybe
Okay, I
the
like
main
that.
character being really good and having a lot of knowledge about this thing,
Right.
they just want to use that character to get to the source.
And so then you could totally have like more like you could totally like thicken the plot a little bit.
Yeah.
You have this one company or something like that that's like, hey, you're this like number one underground duelist or whatever like that, right?
Yeah.
And we want you to figure out the secret behind this other company. And so maybe he or she goes to try to find the secret out, and the company that they're trying to like get all the intel on is like, you know what, we don't want you to investigate us anymore. We'll give you like incentives to stop your investigation and join our cause instead. And so then it's like do I continue forward with my investigation of this company, or do I join them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh.
There's a few different things you could do. It could even be a situation where it's like the character is just one of a few that are really big in this underground fighting industry, and so they bring in a group of people, and they're basically the best of the best, all around
Right.
the world.
Right.
And I think that would be cool too, because you could have them fight each other, and I don't know.
Could totally turn this into like a magic heist movie. I like this.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm actually I'm way more intrigued, and like I want to write this now.
You should.
I'll call it Yugi Uh-oh.
Yugi,
Or
I think you might have
Yugi-
some lawyers knocking on your door for that one.
Maybe
Yugi, uh-oh.
Or maybe I'll call it like Yu-Gi-Oh or something like that.
Like
I
whenever
don't
they lose, they go Yu-Gi-Oh.
know. Yeah, you totally. Yeah, you name call in the book.
Oh man,
I'll call it Pokey Cards or something
Poke cards.
instead. Yeah. There's definitely some like stupid names you could give this.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I got the idea from this though from Magic the Gathering is where
Yeah.
I originally. Well, I guess it's a mixture of Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh. I was never like the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh fan, but Magic the Gathering is always one of those things that I've like wanted to get into.
what have you wanted to get into specifically? Like I know Magic is it primarily the physical cards themselves, like the collecting, or is it the game, or
I am not sure because there is the game, and I played the game quite a bit. But then I decided, because I'm someone who enjoys collecting a lot. Like I
Yeah.
have a pretty decent Pokemon card collection going on.
yeah,
And so, like the fact that it had a physical game, which I've heard that the way the whole, card game, the collectible card game idea works is that, Pokemon is a card game that you collect but can also play.
yeah.
And then Magic the Gathering is a card game that you play but can also collect. Like Pokemon is more into the like collecting aspect.
Okay.
But just the idea of like having a card game, with like a physical copy and getting to go and like play
Yeah.
with other people just seems so cool. And there's so many cool things you can do with like Magic the Gathering sets. Like when I was playing I was playing it on my phone, the phone game, and I had this deck set up where basically every time I put a character on the field, it would spawn in another like weaker character. But because it would spawn in this other weaker character, that counted as me placing a character on a field. So it would just like infinitely basically create these characters on the board, And so like you place down this character who does 1 damage and has 1 health, so it's not very strong. But then you create like 40 of them,
Yeah.
and now you're looking at an army,
Oh, wow.
So I don't know, I just think it's so cool that you can just like come up with just like the wackiest stuff, It's not just this like straightforward game. There's so many different things you could do with it.
That's cool.
And that was kind of why I wanted to make a magic system, because it's not just like hurling a fireball or creating a wall of stone or something like that. You could like strategize with it and
Yeah.
stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
just thought
really
that
cool.
was interesting.
I've never played Magic of any kind, like the physical game or the actual video game. But that gives me an idea for like a video if you wanted to do it. This
I'm
seems
down.
like
Do you
right
wanna
up
mention
your
it on
alley.
here, or do you want to mention it like just make the video without telling anybody? Like, I think let's keep it a secret now. We're holding the worm in front of the fish now.
Okay. In that case, let me like.
Or the carrot in front of the pig. I don't know. What's the?
I can tell you right now and we can cut it out, or I can just write it down and tell you after. It's up to you.
Yeah, you go ahead and just tell me after, or if you want to send it in the Discord or something like that. Whatever works.
Okay,
No,
I'll
I
write
don't
it.
need to
I'll
know
write
it
it down.
immediately.
I'll write it down.
Okay, I think that works. Yeah.
But this would
Then
definitely be an
we-
idea like right up your alley. That'd be
Okay,
great to do.
I like this idea.
Um,
Now you got me intrigued. I'm excited to make more videos though. Like this, content creation is exciting.
yeah.
While you're writing that down, I can go ahead and move on to the next magic system I had.
Yeah. Go for it.
So this next one actually came to me in a dream.
Mm,
I don't know why I was dreaming
that's
this.
the best.
But it actually felt like in my dream it felt way more fleshed out than I assumed a dream would be, because you have those dreams that are like, oh, this makes sense, and then you wake up and you're like, yeah, I don't know why that pig was talking or whatever,
Yeah.
And so this idea is basically, it's very similar to the card game one. I don't know why I keep having one so similar to this, but it's like, think of like arena battles, like what do you call it? When the Spartans would do their big like arena things,
All I can think of is like Colosseum, gladiators.
Yeah, something very similar to that is that concept, but instead of like swords, shields, stuff like that, they have these magic staffs And so the way that the magic staff works is that you have like, let's say you have a stick that's infused with like electricity, and then you have like a tip, like a gem or something that you put on top of it, and maybe it's infused with like wind magic or something like that.
Yeah.
So you make these like combination staffs, and then you go up against these opponents that have their own combination of staffs, and then you like duel it out like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like another good one that would be really cool for animation as well.
I think that would make you ever seen those like just 3 minute just like fighting animations
Yeah.
that people post? I think that would make a really fun one of those.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. That's cool too because of it puts focus on the actual creation of the magic device instead of it just being a thing that you find or you buy. I think that's pretty cool.
Right.
And it could be something where like you have a character who is on a journey to basically create the best staff that they possibly can.
Right.
And
So maybe you have
compete with
like
it.
different quality of staffs too. You have like an electric staff, but if it's not made from, let's just come up with a magic wood, like red wormwood or something like that, then like that's like the highest quality of staff wood that you can get. But if you just have this like, you know, just whatever off the ground stick, basically staff that's infused with electricity, then it's not as like nice. And so the whole quest is, this character's trying to make, this super nice high quality staff so they can compete professionally or something maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's almost similar to like a good real life comparison I can almost give it. Is like golf.
Okay.
Because well, I mean that's different. You don't really like you don't duel. It's like golf.
Yeah. Oh, there's a story idea right there.
Dueling with golf clubs?
versus golf dueling.
Dude, I'll pick up a putter. I'll pick up a putter. That's there's no one stopping me with a putter.
Right.
But like it's similar because there's like you can play with any types, like a really old type, but the materials like it just gets super high end at a certain point.
Right.
And the more like high end it is, apparently the better it gets. I don't know. But it's similar like where you have your lower tier and then you have your higher tier of like the actual equipment.
Right. Yeah, it's a similar concept. And so maybe the explanation for this is that like, using the different type maybe you use different types of wood for different types of like magic infused weapons, like maybe fire responds better to this different kind of wood and stuff like that. Maybe you find a way to work that in, like maybe there's like the grains or something like that in the wood or the fibers or whatever are, more receptive to electricity or fire or wind or whatever.
Yeah, and
I don't know what explanation you would give it, but I mean maybe you could come up with some kind of an explanation for that.
and maybe another thing I just thought of is after each like duel or fight, there's some wear on your staff, and so if you're not careful, it can just break. And maybe there's like somebody out there who has this staff, no one knows how it works, and they're just destroying everybody left and right and breaking their staff itself. And so nobody can stop this person. So maybe you have a character who's on a journey to create a staff to defeat that person. And if they're not careful, then it'll just break immediately if they ever try and challenge them.
Right. Yeah, so maybe the staffs are like temperamental. If you just like are an untrained staff user and you go pick this up and just blast the strongest fireball that you could possibly muster up, then you just like completely disintegrate the staff, so you have to like learn how to like guide the magic through it properly or something.
Yeah, something like that. And then also be careful of the other person and what they're doing.
Right. I like this actually. I didn't think we would because I thought this one was fairly straightforward. It was just magic dueling with staffs. It's basically the card game one, but instead of there being mystery behind the cards, it's just magic staffs. But no, we actually came up. I actually like that idea a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's when you put two minds together, you can really come up with a lot, and that's something I should do more often. Like I usually kind of keep my ideas to myself, but this is a good idea.
I suffer from the same thing. I'm like, I come up with an idea and I'm like, okay, I'll flesh this out on my own. But like, you never know how like great, a second mind can be when you're trying to come up with something creative.
Yeah, I'm excited to share my ideas whenever I figure out what I want to share, because I think this is a super helpful process.
Oh yeah, no, I think this is like such a valuable exercise. Like I've taken creative writing classes and stuff before, and like I mean, I'm surprised that we don't like those classes don't do stuff like this more often.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously, it's good that they prioritize the learning how to write stories and giving you ideas and stuff like that, but they never prioritize the whole like, oh, pitch ideas to each other and flesh them out with each other.
Yeah,
I've never had that happen.
Like the actual concept of building a story from the ground up. It's always like more so the structure of it.
Right.
Yeah, because I remember.
And then you gotta. Sorry, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I remember in my creative writing class, like reading some stories, and it was always like very. It's like you've seen it before. It's so. I wish that sometimes like we had talked about it, and actually like shared each other's ideas and tried to create the best story we can together.
Right.
Because at some point, yeah, it was just like okay, I get how to make it. I'll just give some generic story and get a grade, whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's always an issue I've had with the creative writing classes. Is it like starts off being like, yeah, I'm gonna learn how to fabricate these stories. I like how we're using this word a lot more now that I figured it out.
Yeah, fabricate.
You learn how to put these stories together. But then it like, in typical school fashion, it just becomes for the grade. You're like, oh, I have to write, a short story about this or whatever, so I'll just slap something together kind of thing,
Yeah.
It doesn't give you the time to flesh something out. You're making the skeleton, you're not giving it any of the meat,
Right. Yeah, that's a good way.
And that, I mean, like, that can be extremely helpful, like, because, I mean, world building, like, there is so much that you have to do when constructing a world, and it's just impossible to make it perfect, like, no matter what, one person cannot make a perfect universe that is, like, they cannot create a perfect universe, because as soon as you go to start, looking at the smaller details, there's stuff that hasn't been, picked out yet, and so it starts to fall apart, Like, there's stories that, oh, you're reading this story? Yeah, it works, but, there's no way that you could possibly make it work 100%.
Right.
At some point, it's going to be missing stuff. That's why, plot holes exist, because it's impossible to cover all of your bases.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it, as it turns out, it's like sometimes it doesn't even matter. Like, if you look at, like, the Harry Potter series, it's like it's so popular, but if you actually break it down, like the world building itself, there's so many like inconsistencies and plot holes that go on with it. But like no one, it's like upon first glance, if it doesn't actually pop out at you, then unless you're really thinking about it, then you can pick it out. But
that's how I've always felt about plot holes. If the plot hole, because people want to say like, oh, the story or movie or whatever is not good because of this plot hole. But if it's a plot hole that while you're watching the show, movie, whatever it is you're observing, if you go through it all, you think, wow, that was good. And then afterwards you're like, you know what? That was kind of a plot hole. I don't think it's a valid excuse to say that the plot hole was a big deal.
Yeah.
Because it didn't ruin the story in the meantime. It was something that you observed later. You already got to enjoy that story.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that there's a plot hole.
Yeah, and being a person who watches the Dragon Ball franchise, I know that series is infamous for their plot holes. Does that have the same effect, or not really?
That is that's an interesting like question, because I feel like Dragon Ball's its own like monster to tackle in that regard. Because I feel like when when you're talking about like old Dragon Ball, like the original series, you're talking about a series that, yes, it's about fighting and martial arts, but it does have a good solid story behind it. But as you get into like Z and Super, it becomes less like, oh, we have a really good story, and more like, hey, we're working our characters over to have these really cool fight scenes.
Yeah.
You know, so it like I don't know if Dragon Ball is one of those series where the plot holes even matter. Like it could have the biggest plot hole, but doesn't matter. You're there to watch the big fight scene, you know?
Yeah. That's a good point.
But in terms of the original series, I definitely think it's like valid. You know, if you had a plot hole that you saw, but you know, if it's like, oh, during, you know, oh, that didn't make sense. That was a big plot hole. Then yeah, I think that's a valid, you know, thing. But if you're like watch the whole series and then you're like, you know, why did they do this?
Mm.
Like I think the biggest plot hole for that would be the moon in Dragon Ball. I don't know how you've watched most of the original series, right?
Yeah. I've seen
And
the
then a
majority
little
of
bit
it.
of spoilers for the original series, but you know, if you're not accustomed to the other two podcast episodes where you know we spent the entire time just
Spoiling
spoiling stuff.
everything.
But yeah, but a little bit of spoilers for the original Dragon Ball series when Goku is fighting Jackie Chun.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. When he's fighting him, he turns into a great ape because he sees the moon, and so Jackie Chun, who is you know Master Roshi in disguise, destroys the moon so that Goku turns back into normal. But
Oh.
like you know, destroying the moon is, you know, apocalyptic, catastrophic. That would destroy the world. But in Dragon Ball, all it means it has no consequences at all.
Wait, is the moon like?
Destroying the
Does it
moon.
come back? Is it just gone the entire time now?
So I have not finished the original series of Dragon Ball. I have seen all of Z. I have seen all of Super. I have not finished the original series, and I know at some point it does come back because in Z
Oh.
the moon is there and Gohan turns into a great ape and then Piccolo destroys the moon again.
Oh wow. Wait. Okay.
So
Interesting. Because I don't know.
yeah,
I don't know.
I do not know how the moon situation works in Dragon Ball at all. And I can't say that I've paid super well attention later on in the series to see if the moon comes back because I know that after Piccolo destroys the moon, they don't say anything about it. Well, they say something about it when Vegeta shows up and he's like, "Where's the moon at?" But they don't like wish for the moon to return. They don't do anything about the moon after that, you know. So I'd have to go back and see if the moon is there
I
in
don't
like
think.
Super or something.
Yeah, I don't think it is explicitly in Dragon Ball. It is explicitly stated that the moon was restored using the Dragon Balls.
Okay, so at some point they do wish for the moon back.
However,
But
no
I
such
guess
dialogue exists in DBZ. I don't know.
okay, so if the moon shows up after Piccolo destroys it, then it's big plot hole
Yeah,
essentially.
basically.
Well, I mean, I guess it's not a big plot hole. It you know, it's one of the, it doesn't matter now because now you know the moon is inconsequential. It doesn't. None of the characters have their tails, so they can't turn into great apes anyways.
Yeah,
So if they were to bring the moon back after Z, then it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Unless they do something to make it matter, in which case I would hope that they would do something to bring the moon back.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I
though.
just think what a weird like concept. Like, yeah, there's this big monster that we have to destroy, and it's powered by the moon. So we're gonna destroy the moon. Like, that's not gonna be a problem. Like, what?
and then we'll just like casually say that they brought it back. They're like,
Yeah.
it's here.
But like,
again."
oh, by the way, we'll take the moon. There it is.
Yeah.
Yo, what an odd concept. I don't know. Dragon Ball is so goofy, but I mean, that's what makes it.
That's what
Dragon
makes it
Ball. You know,
fun.
that's what makes it fun. You know, you don't watch Dragon Ball because you're like, oh, I'm picking out all this stuff that I don't like about the story.
Yeah.
You watch Dragon Ball because it's a fun
I watch
story.
Dragon
you know?
Ball for the plot. No.
Yeah, like nobody says that.
No.
Like that was the new Dragon Ball movie. I don't know how we got on this big Dragon Ball rant. Like we turned this podcast
just
into
happens.
a Dragon Ball podcast. But whatever, we'll roll with it, you know?
Yeah.
Content, right? In the newest Dragon Ball movie, I went and saw it, right? And everybody is praising it for how good of a movie it is. They're like, "Oh, the new Dragon Ball movie is fantastic. It's great." But I went and watched it, and I mean, the story is not really all that fantastic. I mean, they kind of just like brought Cell back, and oh, that's the story, you know.
Yeah.
But you don't care. It's you know, it's the fight scenes that you're there for. You think, "Oh, cool, Gohan and Piccolo got new transformations.
Right.
That's neat."
Yeah.
You know, that's why you like the story because that's what you're there for. You're not there for the plot.
Right. You're just there to see what new things happen to the characters in terms of like power and fights and things like that.
Right.
Not
Now, however, a good example of plot holes that I do think I don't know if it doesn't get in the way of the story because I do still enjoy the show. Is Fairly Odd Parents.
Mm.
Like, these are magic fairies that can grant any wish. Why is there ever any conflict? Like, there should never be conflict. Anytime there's conflict, oh, I wish, and then fill in the blank.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's. I never really watched Fairly Odd Parents,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, that is something that, like, whenever there's an obvious thing like that, I'm always like,
Yeah.
why does it? There's no stakes at that point.
Yeah. Which, I mean, obviously you know that it's like that because if they did it the correct way, or not the correct way, but did it, the way we're thinking where, oh yeah, there's no, stakes here, anything that happens, the character can just make not happen again. Like, you wouldn't have a story anymore, so obviously you don't point at the obvious there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I liked something like Ben 10 so much is because he was like super strong, but there was limitations on what he could do, and
Right.
he was always fighting his means of power, and it was always this. There was a dynamic there that didn't just make it to where it's like yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
Okay, so there's another example of a plot hole, actually,
Oh,
that
yeah?
I've thought of. How much of Ben 10 have you seen?
I've seen the original series and like the movie that goes along with it.
The one where he gets like way big and stuff, or the one where the Omnitrix is about to like explode or whatever.
Yeah, the one where he like gets access to every single alien in the universe.
Is that
That was in the movie.
that was in the movie?
I don't think it's canon though.
I don't
like.
Yeah, I don't remember this.
He like
I
gets it
remember
for
him.
a second, and then I don't know if like at the end of the movie it's back to his normal Omnitrix, but
Right.
yeah.
There's something that's very similar that does happen at some point in this show,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't remember that happening in the movie. I don't know. Maybe we're thinking of different movies or something.
maybe.
I don't know. But anyways, do you care if I spoil Ben 10? I think it's Omniverse for you.
I'm good. You can go ahead. Oh
Okay.
yeah, I heard there's a I think I've heard of this plot hole. Go ahead.
Okay, maybe you have. But so in Ben 10 Omniverse, do you know of Alien X?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like Ben's like universal level alien that, the universe has been destroyed. He goes into Alien X and rebuilds the universe, right?
Yeah, because I've heard that Alien X can basically 1v1 virtually every fictional character.
Yeah, because
ever.
it's literally a god. Like, Alien X is literally a god in the show, right? And so, the limitation that they put on Alien X in Ben 10 Alien Force and Ben 10 Ultimate Alien is that there's two other consciousnesses. There's two other...
Consciousness.
there's two other consciousi inside of Alien X. So whenever Ben turns into Alien X, there's these two other people, and any action he wants to do, if he wants to take a step forward, he has to convince these other two, entities to agree with him, And so that's
so
why
cool.
he can't just, like, do whatever he wants,
Yeah.
Anything he has to do, the smallest thing, he's got to convince two other people to agree with him.
Yeah.
And these two other people are not very agreeable. Like, the whole point of their existence is to disagree with each other. Because if they agreed, then the universe would be this just like, squishable thing that the Celestia Sapiens, I think that's what they're called, Celestio Sapiens. It'd just be this thing, this like plaything for them basically, and so that's their like limitation.
Yeah.
Well, in Omniverse, I think it's an Omniverse, or maybe no, I'm pretty sure it's an Omniverse.
Yeah.
Ben convinces the other two entities to just leave. So now he has complete control of a god.
Yeah.
And then you expect me to believe that throughout the rest of the show that he has conflict. Like,
Yeah.
he struggles, fighting against other villains and stuff. But why?
Yeah.
Go into Alien X and then get rid of it.
That's a good point.
Which is a plot hole. I don't know if Ben 10 has a pretty big, fan fiction base.
Oh yeah.
Surprisingly enough. And one of the biggest of the like fan fiction things for Ben 10 is called 5 Years Later, which is made by what is it made by? I gotta look this up. Hang on. 5 Years Later. It's made by the Ink Tank, which is a channel on YouTube, right? And so their whole thing is that they wrote this like Ben 10 and Danny Phantom fan fiction where they like combine the two stories. Like somehow Danny Phantom like ends up in Ben 10's universe
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? Well, so anyways, beyond the point. The point is that they kind of fix this plot hole because there's like this big bad, that's going to destroy the universe, and so they're all like, Ben, why don't you go into Alien X and solve this problem? And Ben's basically like, no, because I have control of a god, I'm not going to, mess with the universe. If there's a way that the universe is supposed to go, I'm not going to change that. I'm not going to mess with that. He's like, what does anything matter if, I just go in and change it?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is essentially saying like, no, I'm fixing the plot hole because, for the sake of the plot hole,
Yeah.
basically. But I mean, I think it's a good thing, like a good fix to it. Like, yes, Ben could just turn into a god and get rid of any issue, but he doesn't want to because he's got a moral standing that prevents him from doing that.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense too, because if you're messing with like the fabric of the universe, then that's
Right.
it's a pretty big deal, I'd say.
Yeah, which I mean, like I guess they kind of touch on the whole like there's consequences for just like doing whatever you want with the universe in Omniverse, because in that one episode where the universe gets destroyed and Ben has to like recreate it,
Yeah.
he doesn't make it perfectly, which is kind of what I was saying before. No one person knows all aspects of the universe, so there's going to be holes, and so he doesn't create it completely perfect. Like you don't see it a whole lot in the show, but there's like little bits of things that are like changed. Like the place that they go and eat at a lot is called like Mr. Smoothie, and I think after he recreates the universe, it's called something very similar but a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then his jacket is like a different color and stuff like that. So it's just like little bits of stuff that change. And so it's a similar concept, where Ben doesn't want to take that power because he knows it's not going to, like, the universe has its own, force behind it, and he doesn't want to alter that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way of balancing that part of his power.
Right. I like how we totally went from story plotting ideas to talking about
Dragon
Ben
Ball
10.
to Ben 10.
Yeah, I don't know, because we've been talking about plot holes now for like 10, 11 minutes. I don't know.
Hey, it all
That's
goes
so
it all
funny.
goes along with each other. There's a
Yeah.
there's a line of dialogue that leads to this point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But if you want to go ahead and give your third idea down for that.
Okay. I'll go ahead and start with the next one that I had. I actually thought of this idea on my drive home today from work.
Oh yeah.
Basically, this one is like super unfleshed out. Literally, what I wrote down here is people have the ability to steal other people's shadow.
Other people's shadow.
Yeah, so like
Whoa.
you have like a living shadow, let's say, and it's like maybe it's an entity that protects you or something like that, right? And so you can like steal another person's shadow.
Okay.
And now you have a more powerful shadow.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm trying to think of like what the implications of that are.
Right. Well, yeah, because I didn't know like, oh, is it only you can steal, living being shadows, or can you like steal the shadow that like a skyscraper casts?
Huh.
And maybe you can, and that's why you have people who are like crazy strong because they've stolen the shadows of like a million buildings or something like that, and so their shadow is just beyond strong.
It sounds like a like an ability from My Hero Academia or something.
It actually, now that you mention it, it kind of does.
Oh, because there's a character. Isn't there a character who fights with a shadow? Pretty sure.
There's a character who, so there's the dark shadow guy,
Yeah.
who's got like a JoJo stand basically, but it is not like an actual shadow. Like he doesn't control his shadow. And then there's another character who can like move through shadows.
Oh, okay.
And stuff, like he can like sink into the shadows almost and like move around in them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like similar, like combine those two concepts and you've got this story idea basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I guess like what's the means of stealing a shadow? How do you do it?
Yeah, see, I hadn't fleshed that out at all.
Yeah.
My idea was you steal a shadow.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I think maybe a cool thing is like, yeah, the shadow is like a protective sort of thing. And if you lose it, then that's it for you. I don't know.
Right. And so maybe you have this like hierarchy thing, where you have like this like slums area of people who have no shadow, and then like you're you go up, you're higher on the ladder depending on how strong your shadow is.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's one way of going about it for sure. Yeah,
That one,
that one's
there's not
hard.
too much to flesh out about that one. I think that one has a lot of potential. I
Yeah.
think it would. I don't know. Most of it's, I don't know how to explain
Well,
it.
because that one's
Like,
also more of that one's more of like a mechanic that would be part of something else. So
of a bigger story.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
there's
I don't know. Yeah.
but regardless, it would be an interesting thing to see in a story.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas, but I don't know. Not all of them are meant to be fleshed out. I don't know.
Yeah.
You want me to go ahead and move on? So I had kind of an idea. I have, one more idea, story that I, was going to talk about. And then I had something else that I'd written down that literally no story, no magic system at all. I just wrote something down that I like want to incorporate into a story. And so maybe I could tell you what I wanted to do, and then maybe you and I could build a story around this like thing that I wanted to incorporate into something.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, but before we do that, we'll go ahead and talk about my final one, which I wrote here, Spirit Summoners. And so, similar concept to the card magic system thing, except it's, instead of having magic, maybe there's like a ghost or like a spirit dimension that people can like travel to
Yeah.
and like call upon like spirits or something
Yeah. What
to come and like aid them.
I feel like what is that? There's something else that has that same sort of concept. I'm trying to think of what it is though. Maybe
Like a
it's
spirit one, or is
Avatar?
it like a, what'd you say?
Avatar? Don't they? Isn't there like a spiritual realm?
So
and
Avatar does have a spirit realm, and in Legend of Korra, they do have it set up so that characters can travel to and from the spirit realm.
Mhm.
It is, I guess, it is a very similar concept, except instead of just traveling into the spirit realm, it's more like you're, you know, claiming a spirit kind of thing. Like maybe you're making a pact with a spirit or something,
Yeah.
and so you like give something up in exchange, and or in exchange, this spirit becomes like a servant
Yeah.
kind of thing. So then I don't know. Did you end up watching Chainsaw Man?
No. No, I
Okay,
haven't
well,
yet.
Chainsaw Man has a very, I won't spoil it too much, but it has a kind of similar concept
Interesting. Okay.
because I know Chainsaw Man was one of the ones that you did want to
Yeah, I
watch.
do want
So
to check it out.
yeah, so I won't spoil that one too much.
Yeah, I think if you do something like this, you could even make it similar to the Ben 10 thing we were talking about, where he has to convince two different people to help him out. And this one,
Right.
you could make it to where a big part of it is convincing a spirit to aid you in your cause or your life.
Right. So it could be like, a very similar situation to Pokemon. You have these like monsters that fight for you, but in Pokemon it's always like, oh, you command the monster and the monster does what it's told kind of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe this concept is you have this spirit that has its own like, thought process, feelings, its consciousness, and so you have to like convince the spirit to do what you want it to do.
Yeah, also because that's also similar to the like the legendary types where you can't catch those ones, but you have to convince them to help you if
Right.
they are completely independent from you, and there's nothing you can do to capture them without them actually letting you. So
Right, like the only control you have over them is the control that they allow you to have.
yeah, and maybe in this spirit realm, there's like with any good spirit realm, there's got to be like the evil ones and then the good ones.
Oh yeah.
And so maybe
like dark spirits, right?
right. So maybe like there's somebody out there who has a pact with these dark spirits, and I don't know what the motive would be. That's something we'd have to think about more, but
Right.
that could be a good motivation. But did I just say good motivation after I said there's no motive?
I I think so. Well, hey, incoherent thoughts. We'll blow
Dude,
past it.
I am feeling so incoherent right now.
Hey,
But
we
yeah,
name dropped. We did it.
we did it. We did it. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, there it is. That's my incoherent thought of the day.
And that's actually all 5 of the like story concepts
Okay.
that I had come up with, except for this last one that I was talking about. And what I wrote here was I want to write a story that involves sailing across the stars.
Ooh.
And so I don't know what you would do with that. You could take it anywhere you'd like. That was just the idea. Was, you have a boat, or maybe you don't even sail. Maybe you row across the stars. But I think it'd be cool to treat the stars as like an ocean, and you sail across it.
Interesting. So you're
So we could call it like Star Voyagers or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's probably a thing.
and you're in
That's
like
definitely a thing.
you're not in a ship. You're
Uh-huh.
in you're in a ship. Like a water ship.
Yeah, like a, same kind of ship that you'd go and, see people pulling up in at like a dock.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. And so like this I'm guessing this ship can go at like light speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe the ship doesn't go up. I don't know. I really don't know how you would flesh this out. But as we're talking about it, I'm kind of thinking you have to have a main character who maybe he's or he or she. I don't know why I keep saying maybe it's a higher being.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a higher being, and maybe this higher being wants to just travel the universe. And so it gets on its... this would be a very abstract story, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have this higher being get on a boat and just, decides it's going to just explore the universe. And so it's like, instead of, you having, someone who grew up on an island all their life and they want to go and explore the world, so they get on a boat and, travel across the ocean. It's the same concept, but, switch out island for maybe planet or realm or something, and then instead of ocean you have the universe that they sail.
Yeah, that's interesting because you could have a character that is like super powerful and just wants to for some reason in my head I picture like a Kratos type character, like quiet and very tough looking, and they just all he wants to do is chill in his boat and sail to the nearest star, and then years and years and years pass. He gets to that star and looks around and helps out something and aids in some sort of conflict or something like that.
So maybe our character is what's creating, because they say the universe is ever expanding, right?
Yeah.
And so maybe our universe, we dip into this abstract thing a little bit more. Maybe our universe has a pouch full of stars, and as the main character is sailing, they're dispersing the stars out and creating more universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe this works better as like a short story idea.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
You said you imagine someone tough looking like Kratos. I kind of imagine like a kid, like a young child.
Really?
I think because it makes more sense. I think it makes less sense, but in this sense, it makes more sense to make it make less sense to have an immature something doing this.
Yeah. I guess when you think of it like that, yeah, it definitely does make sense for it to be like a child. I think I just like the idea of a Kratos character, because Kratos.
Well, and then you can never go wrong with a Kratos character. Like nobody dislikes Kratos. Kratos is just one of those characters. He's so cool.
Also, Kratos in his boat, just
Yeah.
chilling, looking at the stars. I'm thinking of like Kratos once he's retired, or I guess
Right,
he's
he
already
just
in his
decides, you know
retirement
what?
phase. But yeah, once he's
Well,
done.
I don't know. I mean, he definitely tries to get into retirement phase.
Yeah, once he's actually in his retirement phase, and he's just sailing to different stars and like,
Yeah.
what's going on here, all the time. Yeah,
I like that idea too. I think we've almost had two different story concepts
yeah.
in our heads here. You have like an exploring the universe kind of concept, and I have like a sporadically creating the universe kind of concept
Yeah,
going on.
there's a show called The Midnight Gospel. Have you ever seen that?
I have not. I've actually never even heard of Midnight. It sounds cool.
Oh, it's really cool. It's on Netflix, and it's basically it's interesting too because it's in like a podcast format. So Duncan Trussell, the creator of the show, he basically records a podcast with different people, and each episode, it's all animated. It's this character. I forget the name of the character, but this character travels to a new universe or new planet, and learns about it. And the dialogue all comes from his podcast episode, which is like specifically for like making a story and whatnot.
So I just looked it up, and I have not seen an episode or anything of this, but I've been like just scrolling around on Netflix and seen this.
Yeah.
And I thought, I was like, yeah, I might give this a watch, but I just ended up, like, ultimately skipping past it.
Yeah.
But you say it's worth a watch?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. It's not like something where, like, I don't know, it's kind of like a trippier show. It's cool.
Yeah, it looks very psychedelic.
Yes, it is very psychedelic, and Duncan Trussell is known for that. So.
Right. I think that... Not saying that, this concept of, everything's trippy and, you don't know what's up or down kind of concept is bad or anything like that. But when I think the reason I ultimately decided to skip past this, because I was just like, oh, it's going to be another one of those just adult shows that's like, oh, we do drugs, that's funny kind of things, So I was like, I'm probably not going to enjoy this super well, but I mean.
No, this one's good. It's fun. I like it quite a bit.
That's good. Okay. I'll give it a watch then.
Yeah.
I still have to watch Breaking Bad though. I have that's at the top of my list right now.
As soon as you start watching Breaking Bad, then we have to make a Breaking Bad episode.
I agree. Well, I don't think we should do it when I start watching Breaking Bad. I think I should watch through. I should watch through Breaking Bad. We should make a Breaking Bad episode, and then I should watch through Better Call Saul, and then we should make. I just threw my pen on accident. We should make a Better Call Saul episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
I lost my pen. I was like holding it in my hand and using it as like a pointer, and then I like turned my hand real fast and it flew out of my hand. So I guess I'll use this pencil that I have on my desk instead.
You gotta have your point. I have a Sharpie, so.
There you go. Like I don't know, it just feels right to have something in your hand while you're speaking.
It does. Like I fidget a lot, so I have to have something.
I'm a big fidgeter. I'm a really big fidgeter.
Dude, yeah, I can never sit still.
I don't know if it's like an ADD, ADHD kind of thing, but yeah, I like have to be moving my like hands or something.
Yeah, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
I find that I like shift around in my seat a lot. Like if I find it happens most if I'm like writing my stories out and stuff, because I'll sit down and write for like an hour or two,
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that like I will sit like cross-legged in my chair. And then I'll stick my legs back out, and then I'll sit cross-legged again, and then I'll stick one of my legs out. Like I can't just like sit in the chair.
Yeah, I get that completely. Not being able to just sit still and
that's probably why my chair creaks so much. Is because I'm always moving around in it. Yeah. Like my mom has had a chair for, 2 or 3 years. She sits in it every day for work, and it's perfectly fine chair. I've had this chair for like half a year, and every time I sit into it, it's like,
oh man. You ruined it.
Yeah, and then every so often the like armrest will pop out, and so I have to like screw it back in.
Yeah, I find myself like I'll fidget with something. I break a lot of my stuff. Like this Sharpie, you know how it has the little clip on it that you can like clip onto something? Yeah, that's broken off. I don't remember.
Oh, I do that all the time. I like school pens mainly.
Yeah.
I'll like bend the like clip around, and I don't mean to break it. I just like flopping it around, and then all of a sudden it just snaps off.
Yeah, and then I'm like, oh, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was your final idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's pretty much all I had come up with. I mean, most of those, weren't really. I mean, we turned them into story ideas, but which I mean was the whole point of this, obviously. Yeah. But those were magic systems mostly.
Yeah.
With a bit of story lore, I guess, behind them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy with where we went with most of them, and I mean, most of these stories were stuff that I was like, oh, it's an idea. I don't know if I'll ever get to it, but I mean, like, I definitely want to write the God Cat short story. I think that'd be fun. I think the sailing across the sea of stars story would be so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really like the whole underground card magic dueling system idea that we came up with.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
So nobody take those ideas. I'm doing them first.
There's a lot of potential there. I think
Yeah.
it'd be really cool to see where you could take them.
Yeah, maybe these are stories that you and I could write together. You know, I mean, we came up with most of it together. Maybe we write them together too.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Because you and I messed around a little bit with like, what do you call it? Collaborative stories. You know,
Yeah.
but we haven't like really delved into that. You know, like other than that one time when you and I went to the cafe and sat down. That's I've never had another collaborative story experience again.
Yeah. Yeah, me neither. Which we should check up on that and see what we can.
I agree, because I don't want what we came up with to just die off. I think we had a good story idea going, and I'd like to pick that one back up.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, we should venture back over to that cafe.
We're foreshadowing maybe in like 3 years, let's say. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe in 3 years, we have 100-something podcast, maybe more podcast episodes, and people are like, oh, these famous authors and famous YouTubers or whatever like that, they have this podcast. I'm gonna go watch the first couple of episodes, and then they get to this part and they're like, oh, they were mentioning this secret project and now it's out.
Oh yeah. I've never even thought about that. You could be mentioning something right now, like are building like these stories out, and they're like there's already 3 of them that are out there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like how cool of an idea would it be, to one day, let's say we write these stories and, you go back and watch these episodes when these stories were just, fledgling ideas, and I don't know, just the idea of like going back and like observing, you had no idea this was going to happen, and now knowing what happens, going back and observing that is always just such an enjoyable experience to me.
Yeah, same.
I like to do the whole, like if I'm doing something, I can't think of any like solid examples at the moment, but if I'm doing something, I always like to think like, man, what would me a year ago be like thinking about this?
Yeah.
I just always think that's a cool concept.
Yeah.
Maybe we turn that into a story. I don't know.
We could do that.
That's the beauty of being a writer, is that everything is a potential story idea.
Right. And honestly, we could keep going with this concept, if once a little bit of time has passed and we've built up a few more story ideas, we could always come back and try and do the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think this is a really fun thing, to like just come back every so often. Yeah, once you come up with like 3 or so story ideas, it's fun to do this. So yeah, maybe we make a habit out of doing this.
Yeah, and I'll have to really like rack my brain to see what I can come up with.
I gotcha.
Because
I know you told me it'd been a little while since you had done like some like creative writing.
Yeah,
so
it has been a while.
We're bringing you back out of retirement.
Yeah, dude. And I like every now and then again, like I have something and then I don't write it down, and it just gets lost. So
I mean, I think it's a big shame too, because I think you have such wonderful ideas. Like every idea I've ever pitched to you, you always come up with like I'll give you like a really abstract concept, and I feel like you fill it out really well.
Yeah.
Regardless of what I ever give you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't always feel that way, but I appreciate it. But yeah, I'm gonna try and think of what I can present to the class.
Right.
Hopefully, I can come up with some good foundation stuff. But actually, that's something that's interesting because me and you, we do have our like genre differences, because you're very much fantasy and I'm more so sci-fi. So that is a little bit of a difference that. That might be evident in our 2 different episodes.
Yeah, because most of the story ideas I pitched to you were like magic system based.
Yeah.
And so I am curious to see, once you start brainstorming up your stuff and we go into your, your part of the, creative story thing, I'm interested to see, instead of magic systems, maybe you have like, worlds created, or like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Just like universes basically rather than magic systems. Maybe you're the
Right.
flip of mine. I had magic systems and you gave me the story for these magic systems. Maybe you give me the story and then I give you
The
the like
systems in which
magic,
it
the
works.
like fiction part of it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because I don't often like think of like actual systems to go within the story. It's usually just like the
Hmm.
concept first, like the concept of the story. So yeah, that actually it will be interesting to uh, like look at it for
Uh-huh.
that. Um,
Funny thing, I used to never really give a whole lot of thought to like any magic system I created. Like I'm writing a novel at the moment, and
mhm.
I've been spending a very good long while trying to come up with a very nice solid magic system that I think is I mean, not unique because everything's been done and nothing is 100% unique.
Yeah,
But I want to make it as unique and as interesting as possible. And that used to be something I never really did. I'd have this story and I'd be like, "Oh yeah, the characters are able to use magic. I'll explain it a little bit. It doesn't matter how it's explained."
yeah,
But then I would go to read something like Brandon Sanderson, and his magic system is fleshed out so well that it really made me want to flesh out some magic systems. So that after reading Brandon Sanderson, that has made me a more magic wanting to create this more interesting magic system based writer.
yeah. I've yet to read any Brandon Sanderson, which I do really want to.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I've heard is that his like magic systems are super in depth and digestible. Um,
Right.
and so that is something like I do want to read them just so I can see that. Because is it pretty like it's intricate but also at the same time easy to like comprehend in a way or
Oh yeah. So, Mistborn, for example,
mm-hmm.
it's very intricate. There's a lot of rules. Well, I don't know if I'd say a lot of rules. There are very solid rules. There's very strict rules. It's not a very oh, you can just do whatever you want with this magic system. But at the same time, it's not like you're like, how did the character do that? Like once he explains it, you're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah,
You know, because it's the taking metals. It's like metal magic basically, and so the whole concept behind Mistborn's magic system is when people who are able to unlock the full potential of metals, if they ingest a metal like pewter, if they ingest pewter, then they can burn pewter and it makes them stronger. And then every metal has its own alloy, which is its opposite. So I think I think it's tin. So pewter makes you stronger, right, in the story, but there's tin that's pewter's alloy, and instead of making your physical body stronger, it makes your senses stronger.
yeah,
And
interesting.
so every metal that the main characters are able to utilize has this opposite.
Yeah,
One metal will make it to where you could push metals away from you, and then its alloy makes it to where you can pull metals to you.
interesting. Okay,
And
I've
so
never.
it's a very you think it's a complicated thing, but it seems so simple once you read it, and it's explained to you.
Yeah, what would you say right now? What would you recommend by Brandon Sanderson?
100% Mistborn. I think.
Yeah,
Well, see, I don't know. Are you looking for something more digestible or something that's get me into Brandon Sanderson?
I'd say get me into the Cosmere, which I'll go ahead and elaborate on what the
Uh huh.
Cosmere is. Is Brandon Sanderson's MCU, basically his fictional universe
Yeah.
that a lot of his
Well,
different
yeah,
books
I
take
just
place in.
realized, yeah, we're talking about Brandon Sanderson without, the people who are listening to this might not even know who that is.
Oh
He's a
yeah,
very famous author. He's I would almost go so far as to say he's probably the biggest name in fiction right now.
yeah. I'd say besides
Like
Martin,
Stephen
George R. R.
King or
Martin,
something. Yeah, George R. R. Martin or Stephen King or something.
but
I would say he's
approaching him.
probably okay. He's definitely top five biggest fantasy writers at the moment. I think
Yeah,
he finished off the Wheel of Time, he finished the last couple of books in the Wheel of Time.
yeah, and
Um,
he's on his way to creating like the next basically Game of Thrones.
Essentially,
Yeah,
he's I think he's gonna be the next biggest author for sure.
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I would say to get into Brandon Sanderson, I started with Mistborn because it was I th- I don't know if it's a good introduce you to the Cosmere
Hmm.
all that much, but it's definitely a good introduce you to how Brandon Sanderson writes and how his stories are constructed. It's a huge book. It's like each there's 3 Mistborn books, and all of them are 1,000 pages.
Well,
So
actually,
it's massive.
there's Mistborn is made up of 2 trilogies actually, because there's a second trilogy.
So yeah, there's that, and then there's like Alloy of Law or something, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the Alloy of Law is, I think, after what happens in Mistborn, or maybe it's before. I think it's after. I think it's like several years, even decades, maybe.
Yeah.
I haven't read Alloy of Law, but I've heard that one is like how Legend of Korra is like, the like 1900s based, but it's Avatar, The Last Airbender still,
Yeah.
And so I've heard it's a very similar concept, where it's you've got Mistborn, and then you've got the like, not future of Mistborn, not like the future, but it's like the future of where that world went, basically.
Okay, I see. Interesting.
Yeah. If you're looking for something smaller by Brandon Sanderson, I'm reading Tress of the Emerald Sea, which is his like newest like secret project thing that he released. I think it was released 2-3 days ago. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
very,
Was that
very,
soon?
it's very new. Yeah, it's very young.
Okay.
And I'm enjoying it a lot. It's written, I would say, that is not the best place to start if you want to get a feel for Brandon Sanderson, though. Because he writes that story very differently than he writes, like, Mistborn. Like, Mistborn is told like a fantasy novel, but Tress of the Emerald Sea is told like a fairy tale, basically.
Yeah.
Like, he tells it like a storyteller, not a writer in that one.
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's bad. I actually really enjoy that style of writing. It's just different than how he typically writes, I think.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool that as a writer he has, like, almost like an actor has range between, the kind of characters they can play. He can write different characters. That's pretty cool.
That's always so interesting to me when you've got someone who writes fantasy, horror, stuff like that. Like, there's not a genre that they are, nailed down to.
Right.
I always think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
It might not be the best thing career-wise, but I always appreciate it.
It's like when Steven Spielberg went to go make his first comedy, and it absolutely like tanked. It was really bad, apparently. So everyone was like, "Stick to the other ones."
Right.
I don't know if he's made another comedy movie after that, though.
Well, I mean, like, even if it's not something you're good at, I don't know why I said you good at. Even if it's not something you're good at, I mean, trying it out is never harmful,
Oh, yeah.
If his comedy bombed, whatever, at least he knows he's not good at making comedies.
Dude, at least
Or
he
what if
still
never
made a comedy movie.
Yeah, what if
How many people
what if
say
he
that?
never made that? What if he never made that and turns out he could have made the greatest comedy of all time?
True, yeah.
But you'd never know because he never made it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I never think that even if you think, if it's a passion of yours and you don't think you're good at it, I still think you should pursue it.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Absolutely.
What's bad to you might be fantastic to somebody else.
If you have any desire whatsoever to try something new, you should definitely do it. Because you
And that's the inspirational corner of our podcast.
Yeah, that's the message of today. If you have an idea, do it. And that goes along with what we were doing today, which was exploring ideas.
Right. Yeah, no, this is definitely a big, like, creative mind podcast. This isn't analyzing, like, our last 2 episodes were analyzing stuff. This is more of a, okay, we're going to make something now,
Yeah. And maybe there's something coming pretty soon to Billy's YouTube channel. I have an idea that I'm going to pitch to him after this.
Well, would it be just my channel, or would it be both of ours? Like, were you going to post something on your channel as well, or is it...
It was mainly just an idea for you. Like...
I mean, that's how you want to go about it. I didn't know if this was, like, content for both of us or content for me. Was this content that we were doing I won't ask you the details.
Yeah, we'll work it out after.
Yeah. We won't spoil anything, actually. Yeah, we'll leave it up to surprise.
Yeah, but it'll have something to do with what was talked about in this episode.
Okay, I'm excited. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So, how are we feeling? We good there?
Yeah, I mean, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so. No?
All right. Well, yeah, I guess we can go ahead and end it here. Make sure y'all tune in next time to see what Aiden comes up with
Yeah.
for his creative writing stories.
Or don't. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
It'll be fantastic. I already know.
I'll try my best, everyone. I guess we'll have outro fading in right now.
Yep.
I'll do it
Our
this time.
Dragon Ball Z themed outro.
Yeah. Introducing you to episode 4, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be the, find out next time, right?
All right, well, that's episode 3 in the books. Tune in next time to hear my very own original story ideas. I'll go ahead and give a little sneak peek into one of my favorites. It's about this guy who gets diagnosed with a terminal illness, and in order to take care of his family, he starts selling crystal meth. It's going to get pretty crazy, so if you'd like to hear the rest of that, please tune in to the next episode of the Incoherent podcast with Billy and Aiden. Bye.